Hey, welcome everybody to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. You're going to love today's episode. I've got Zac Jiwa who's going to join us. Zac is the executive director and host for Food, Wine, and God. This is going to be a documentary that he's working on right now, and it takes place in all the parts of Europe and Africa and Germany and just areas where not only Christ walked, but where Christianity evolved, and it's about their culture as it relates to their culinary, their food, their wine, and the walk with faith. It's just an absolutely phenomenal story, but it's food, wine, and God. And I've known Zac for a few years. I think you're going to enjoy this. We talk a lot about inspiration on this podcast, and Zac's going to inspire you. This was just something that was laid on his heart about 2 or 3 years ago. So, anyway, get yourself a virtual cup of coffee, sit back, enjoy, and let's meet Zac Jiwa. Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome everybody to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. Kind of gave you a little teaser in the intro, but when I say we're here to inspire, have I got a treat for you today. I'm really excited. I've got Zac Jiwa in the house. Zac, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Stan. I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
God, this is going to be nice. It's going to be fun. So just not to bury the headlines, because we're going to get to it, but Zac's doing a phenomenal, he's got a purpose in life where he's, working on a documentary, Food, Wine, and God. And we're going to talk about that. But first of all, I got to kind of introduce, and I don't do a lot of bios, but, I'm kind of curious. You're this master chef. You've got this documentary that you work on, but yet you're a computer scientist. So do all people that are chef and documentary adjuncts, do they start off as computer science majors? I'm just curious.
Have you found that trend, Stan? I don't.
Yeah, I haven't, and that's why I'm asking. Is this something new?
Yeah. Well, the answer I give to a lot of people is number one, I'm not a real chef. I just play one on TV. And yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe a lost calling, or perhaps it is. I never saw myself as being very artistic at all. In fact, I lamented it whenever I was younger. I'd see people who could paint, people who could act, people who could do, various arts. And I was like, I don't really have an art. And I wasn't looking for one necessarily. But it was kind of a jealousy that I didn't have some special gift. And it was really through natural desire, passion. I love to eat. And as I, started early in my life, I had a diverse upbringing. Was exposed to food early. I was also very poor. We grew up very poor, and so we had to do with what we had, and eating the same thing over and over again. Maybe fine for some, but because I had that diverse palate that I developed early, I started trying to figure out how to replicate some of the great food that I ate. And that led to a passion in cooking. And I was in the kitchen from like the time I was born, actually, like it turns out. But anyway, long story short, I think cooking and, the practice of preparing food for others kind of led me to what I find is my art. In a way, it brings me peace. Working with both hands kind of takes your focus off of everything else in life. And I'm big on hospitality, and I love to serve others. And those two things just combined, and I guess I'm pretty good at it. People say that I'm pretty good at it, and so that's my art.
Fantastic. Well, I was just busting your chops because, again, as I looked at your bio, I saw that, you early on had majored in computer science. You also have a degree from the Kellogg School of Business, and I think you're going for your master's in divinity from Liberty University. But again, not to bury the headlines, what Zac's doing is truly amazing. We met probably a couple years ago, and I think it was a dream at that time, maybe a little bit more than a dream, but you'd always talked about food, wine, and God, and having a documentary on the big screen that took you all over the world talking about again, the food, the wine, and the aspects of faith. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. And so tell us a little bit about Food, Wine, and God. How has it evolved? Where are you today? Is it launching? When is it going to launch? What's the process? And just give us some background.
Yeah, it's my favorite subject. If I ramble on too long, just redirect me. But I think I think it starts, as I referenced earlier, in childhood. My origin story is somewhat interesting. I'm the child of a immigrant Pakistani Muslim who came to this country to study pharmacy. That was my father. My mother was a white Midwestern preacher's kid, kind of from Midwestern Southern preacher's kid. Those two things don't normally come together. I guess my mom was a bit of a black sheep, but bottom line is I grew up with two diverse cultures and the food that comes along with it. Very spicy, kind of Southern Pakistani food. And then, Southern home cooking, hot, spicy chicken curries and those sort of things. And then on the other side, chicken and dumplings and biscuits and chocolate gravy. No one's ever heard of chocolate gravy on biscuits, but some parts of the South, they do that. And, so that's kind of where the origin story starts in terms of my palate, if you will. My faith journey has been a long one. I ended up growing up as a Christian in a Christian home. Parents divorced early, so I had knowledge of God. I had knowledge of, I would maybe call it more religious knowledge of a very orthodox, legalistic, religious upbringing. But I didn't, these things didn't really start converging until I was in my early 30s, really when I had kids, in terms of, so, I went to school, got a degree, did what the counselor said. You're probably an engineer, a scientist. I found myself more on the business side of the world, hence the kind of the marketing focus, and ended up in product. And through working through a number of different companies, multinational government, different things, I got to travel the world. And in traveling the world, it opened my eyes that everyone should travel. I think Bourdain said that everyone should travel, and some of what I do is mirroring some of what Bourdain did. But it just opens up your world. And if you come from a faith perspective and a faith orientation, you start to see patterns, and you start to see things that disrupt the patterns or the strong held beliefs. And that started opening up my mind, and I went on my own faith journey, left the foundational church doctrine that I grew up with, and started becoming, I guess is what you would say. But it wasn't until my late 30s. I used to complain that I didn't have some miraculous conversion story, and yet here I am at the late 40s, or almost 50, and I sure do. And be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. I think we say that about asking the Lord for patience, or asking the Lord for this or that. He'll give it to you, wisdom. It's not always not always easy. And really, the origin story, that's really the question that you ask me. It started in that deep uh, pondering of faith, mixed with that international introduction. A lot of things that I believe to be true doctrinally, I don't necessarily believe. We won't get into that, but the world just kind of opened things up when you travel to Europe, when you travel to Southeast Asia, when you travel to South America. You start to see things a little bit different way. Um, and the real origin of Food, Wine, and God by title was my first trip to Israel in 2017. I went for my 40th birthday. I just wanted to celebrate my 40th different. I felt a huge amount of development and change, and kind of landmark at 40, being from the healthcare field, the medical field, and computer science turned technology, turned marketing, turned really focused on healthcare. My entire career was focused on healthcare tech, and has been. But from that perspective, and kind of that investigational perspective, the the recognition that 40 is like halfway there, right? If we think about average lifespans, which is what I was alluding to with healthcare, average lifespan for a male, I think, is 86. You get to 40 and you're like, wait, I'm halfway there. You look back and say, Have I really, done what I set to accomplish? The first question was like, have I really done anything meaningful? And if I look back at, 13, 14, 15, whenever those formative thoughts started coming in, I had, worldly desires. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to, all the I wants, all the, really all the, uh, independent self sufficiency that comes with being, I think, a human, being broken in a broken world. And so anyway, 40 years old, go to Israel in search of truth, meaning, purpose, celebrating 40th birthday. And the thing about Israel that just smacked me upside the head was faith is interesting in theory, and you can come to believe it and have hope. And many people do without ever visiting Israel. But whenever I visited Israel and I walked the path, there was something that just landed on me. And what it was is this was real. This actually happened. That's how it affected me. I don't know if that's how affects everyone, but this is real. This really happened. Now on that trip, I was with a church group. So I was on a bus with 50 other people. And when you're on a guided tour like that, you go where the other 50 people go. You eat what the other 50 people eat. You see what everybody sees. But built inside of me is this exploration, and specifically food and wine. And I asked our tour guide, I'm like, can I kind of break off the beaten path and go find the best food? Can I go find the best wine? Long story short, that trip wraps up 10 days. And I come home and I register the domain Food, Wine, and God with this idea that I was kind of on the side. I was going to take people on kind of Jesus tours, but do it in a really elevated way where we went and had, Michelin star level food and go explore the wineries and, learn the Jesus story and see the Jesus sites and those sort of things, the sites of antiquity. And so that landed on me. I did the domain, built a website, didn't do anything with it. Like, got distracted, went back to work in healthcare. And it's 6 years later, sometime shortly after that is when we met. I end up kind of burning out in my career. A lot of things, personal things going on in my life. We had just survived COVID. 2022, I was called to take a sabbatical. And by called, I mean, there were prophetic words spoken over me, take a sabbatical. Didn't really know what that meant. Knew the root word from the Old Testament. Thought that, it was pastors and academics that took a sabbatical. So I didn't know what I was supposed to do on sabbatical, but there were some long lost things in my heart and soul that I wanted to do. Ended up divorced after 21 years in 2021. So here I am in 2022. I'm going to go on some adventures. I'm going to go do things that, I kind of dreamed of doing when I was 19 or 20. Didn't have the money, nor did I have I guess I was fearful of the world at that point in time. So I took this sabbatical around the world, probably walked, I don't know, a couple thousand miles, hiked Machu Picchu, the Inca Trail, hiked across Spain on the Camino de Santiago, France, Switzerland, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam. And it was at the end of that trip, sabbatical, the end of that year, the Lord started feeding me. He started feeding me hope. He started feeding me words of affirmation. He started kind of putting things on my heart that were always there, were embedded in there. But I just kind of suppressed it because I had to go be professional. I had to go earn a bunch of money. I had to be a father and a family guy and all that sort of stuff. So the stuff that was buried deep in there that I'd lost. And at the end of the sabbatical, and I'll never forget this, I went to Pamplona, Spain, to run with the bulls. January 7th of 2023. And I was headed back from that trip and on the airplane heading from Bilbao, Spain, back to Austin, Texas, where I reside. I was watching an episode of Anthony Bourdain. I wouldn't say that I'm the biggest fan of Anthony Bourdain. I like him. I like to watch any travel show and any food show. I got into that, but 2023, I wasn't watching much TV. But you're on a plane, you're captive. I was watching Bourdain, And kind of in the middle of that flight, while I was watching, I heard the Lord just put on my heart, "This is food, wine, and God." And so for context, right? 6 years later, I registered, didn't really do anything with it. It's there, but I hadn't done anything with food, wine, and God for 6 years, and it just hits me like a hammer: food, wine, and God. And um, uh, I had a Moses in the desert, burning bush in the desert on that flight, because I heard what the Lord was saying, right? That food, wine, and God was a show, and that I was supposed to do it some way. Um, and I argued with him because that's not me. I don't know anything about filming a show. I don't know anything, and I don't know the first thing about it. Don't know how to budget for it. Don't know anything. I would watch it. I'd watch a show like that, but Zach is supposed to do it, and so I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to film it. Maybe I'm supposed to learn um, videography. Maybe I'm just supposed to go raise money for it, or whatever. And it just became very clear on my heart. And I in that argument, I said, "Okay, Lord, I give up. I surrender. If you want me to do it, you're going to show me exactly what you mean by putting this on my heart." And I started asking questions every morning of the Lord: "Who do you want me to talk to? Where am I supposed to go?" And this is at the end of sabbatical. So, I'm also thinking I'm supposed to go back to my career. I'm supposed to go back to what I've done for the last, 23 years of my career, 24 years of my career. And there was just this hardcore beckoning of this is what you're supposed to do. I didn't have the money to go do it. I didn't have the resources to go do it. And it's really interesting. I when I go at something, I go at it hard, and I become impatient. And the Lord taught me a lot of patience. And I was going to go try to film. I was going to use my last $50,000 to go film in Israel in November of 2023. Launched a crowdfunding campaign, some marketing assets, and war broke out on October 7th of 2023, like 7 days after I'd kind of prompted this journey. I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to go to Israel to film. I was going to film the first episode in Jerusalem. And as you know now, it was a full 2.5 years later. We filmed the pilot episode in Jerusalem in the first 2 weeks of December of 2025, so just 6 months ago. And so the Lord took me through 2.5, almost 3 years. As we sit right here, we're at the end of July. It's been 3 years since He laid that vision on my heart, and I keep pursuing it. Learning to be still and know that He is the Lord and that He has His timing. And, even as we sit today, we're not finished with editing, and it's like frustrating. I need to get it out. I need to do the next steps. But I also sit back and say, the Lord has had His way with me. And it's in His timing, and I need to be patient and yeah.
So you mentioned the first episode. So for those out there, how many episodes are there? Will there be? What does this look like? What do the episodes look like? And what's the outcome? What are we gonna be looking at in 2 to 3 years when we look back and see Food, Wine, and God?
Well, I'll answer that question consistently, which is only the Lord knows. But um, I will also tell you, in that waiting, there was a lot of inspiration to Food, Wine, and God, and what it is. I describe Food, Wine, and God, the elevator pitch, as Anthony Bourdain meets C.S. Lewis on a journey to discover our faith. And in the waiting, I worked on what what a multi-season um, show would look like. And it starts in the beginning. So think of it as a biblical and geographical timeline of faith, the Judeo-Christian faith specifically, and 7 seasons, 49 episodes. That's how I have it drawn up, of taking us through biblical history of the Bible, but in modern times, experiencing the cultures and the food and the history of those places. So season 1, episode 1 would start in the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, he placed a garden, right? And where is that garden? Well, we don't truly actually know, and there's dispute, but most historians would place it around Basra, Iraq. And so I think of season 1, episode 1 being in Basra, Iraq, in the Garden of Eden. And we'll step through kind of a historical story over 7 seasons that takes us from in the beginning all the way through the desert with Moses. You can think of geographically, you just follow it all across Iraq and Iran, modern day Iran, into Egypt, Alexandria, up through Israel, up through Syria and Lebanon and Turkey, Macedonia, Greece, if we follow that biblical narrative. And I think the one thing that is different about where we go is most stories kind of stop at Jesus or stop really closely after Jesus. And one of the things that was critical to my understanding of the gospel and the message was really a lot of what happened in the last 2,000 years. So the latter half of the show is really exploring kind of the Middle Ages and the Catholic period and the Protestant period. It also conveniently allows me to go to some of my favorite places in Europe and do Greece and Italy and Germany if we follow the Catholic Church. And well, if we follow Acts and Paul's journeys and we end up in Rome, and then we get to do the Middle Ages and how that all expanded, and then Martin Luther nailing the 95 Thesis and what happened to the Protestant period all through Germany and Spain and Ireland and the UK. And it brings us up to, about, 500, 600 years ago. But it'll be a blessing if I get to do 7 seasons, 49 episodes. And quite frankly, if I get to do 7 seasons, the opportunities to go east and to go west just continue. So in Zac's dream world, he does this for the rest of his life. But I also have to be surrendered to maybe there's just one show, maybe there's just one season. Maybe it looks different. But we shot right in the middle. We shot in Jerusalem as the starting for the pilot, because we've got to show something that people can understand and relate to. And the first episode, I guess this kills any teasers, but the first episode is Jerusalem, the Table of Rest. There is a through line, and every episode ends around a table. I kind of think of it as the Last Supper of the episode. But in this case, in fact, we actually went to Israel thinking we were filming Jerusalem, the Table of Kings. That was the title of the episode before we left here in December. And we came back with Jerusalem, the Table of Rest, because we found that unique cultural Friday at sunset to Saturday at sunset, the Shabbat table being the gathering place in Jerusalem that almost everybody stops for and sits around. Foreigners are invited, strangers are invited. If you're in Jerusalem, you're likely to get invited to a Shabbat table. And it also parlays into this concept. It's almost foreshadowing that I took a sabbatical, because it takes us into this concept of rest, and something that we all, I think, need and we don't do very well, to actually take a rest. So
That's so cool.
yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So if we go 7 seasons, we go 49 episodes, and you've got all these different locations that you're shooting throughout Europe, throughout Africa, throughout the various areas where, Christianity was evolved. How different is the cuisine? How different is the wine? Again, food,
Mhm.
wine, and God. How much difference is there in God?
Mhm.
What's the differences as you go from each of these locations?
Yeah, well, first of all, I haven't visited all these locations yet. So part of it is the exploration, the curiosity, and the discovery. We also know that there are some, countries that won't have wine, and mostly, the Middle Eastern countries, the predominantly Muslim countries won't have wine. So, but there are artifacts of wine and old breweries and different things. So, we'll sub wine in sometimes for whatever the local custom is in those episodes, but we'll also go look at artifacts. It's not really meant to be um, it's not really meant to be a history show per se. We're not going and digging around in artifacts, but we do want to unearth some of the things that happened in, the Mesopotamian region. They have said that the first wine was made in Georgia, and there is kind of an episode in the country of Georgia because that's where some of the earliest winemaking was found. And it begs you to wonder um, how some of the biblical stories moved around and where they actually physically were, because there's still among archaeologists lots of disputes on where physical sites were. And so I don't want it to be an archaeological um, expedition. I want it to be about the food, the wine, the people, the culture, and the evolution of that in those places, what it was then, what it is now, what it may have looked like, those sort of things. So,
So,
but I'm also like really excited about, um, you know, going to some of the bigger cities that I've never, seen. Alexandria is an example. Ephesus, like the seven churches of Asia. What do those look like? Some of them are Muslim countries, right? Turkey is predominantly Muslim, but there's so many cool artifacts and stories from there, from Macedonia, all where Paul journeyed, and then the evolution of the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church. And you think about um, the Council of Nicaea and Chalcedon at those times, and how our Bible. I was just in Washington D.C. with my kids. We did a summer road trip. We try to do that every summer, and we went to the Museum of the Bible, and like all these artifacts they have from all over the place and where they found them is just so fascinating. So tying all of that history into the places that we go and the layers of history.
you joked that you're not a chef, but you play one on TV, but you actually are. I mean, you actually have some culinary skills. In fact, didn't you, uh didn't you prepare the meals for The Chosen? Maybe that was their final episode. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a blessing. Just one. I was invited to cook for The Chosen's season 5 wrap party. So as they were wrapping up season 5, there's 7 seasons, and the last season is about to debut. But I was invited. A dear friend of mine works for The Chosen, and it was kind of funny, in my hospitality nature. Um, the way it happened was I actually invited him to come to Austin, and I'd take him out to the hill country and introduce him to Texas wine, and then I'd cook for him. That was the proposition. And he said, "Well, I won't be able to make it down there for a while, but um, you probably can't cook for 50 to 100 people. Otherwise, I'd invite you to cook for us, and we're going to do a party at the end of the season." And I said, "Yeah, challenge accepted. I'll come do that." That was just fascinating. So I've cooked for some really amazing and interesting people. Got to cook for TV Jesus. That was pretty amazing. And so, yeah, every once in a while I get called. I don't, like I said, I don't work at a restaurant. I don't really, I cater when people ask me to, but mostly it's like voluntary. I also teach people to cook. I especially like to cook. Being in Central Texas, I especially like to smoke barbecue. And so oftentimes I'll get a call and say, "Hey, I want to smoke a brisket. Can you help me?" And people have no idea what it actually takes to do something like that. And I think that's fun because I can teach somebody the craft.
I think your real joy is when your son joins you. Tell me about that. Hasn't he, started to, at a young age, take up some of this with you?
Yeah, you're watching my Instagram pretty closely, aren't you? Um, yeah, my second son, who's my middle son. I have 4 kids, 19, 18, 16, and 12, and I'd say they're all fairly culinarily astute, because sometimes I make them cook with me. My second son he's very artistic. He's absolutely the artist of the group, and he's the kid that picked up my guitar. I don't even play the guitar. I bought one during COVID so I could learn to play the guitar, and it's set in my closet. And he's like, "Dad, can I try to use your guitar?" And he taught himself how to play the guitar in 6 months. But I'm just sharing his artistic capabilities, but he's also, found a love and passion for cooking, and he's kind of mastered desserts. He kind of became the cheesecake chef in the family, and yeah, whenever I've had opportunities to cater or been asked to cook, I'll ask him if he wants to come along and help. And so he's done that a number of times. He's a master of Basque cheesecake. When I was in Spain, I fell in love with Basque cheesecake, and I challenged him. Like when I came home, I'm like, "If you want to make me my favorite cheesecake, you figure this one out." And he did. He does an amazing job. So, I mean, I don't know that that's what he'll grow up to be. He plays guitar in the worship band and does all sorts of stuff at church, but he's very talented when it comes to the artistry of the kitchen.
You get one meal. You get to make it. What's your go-to? You talked to maybe barbecue, maybe that's it, but what's your meal? What do you prepare? Not just the main dish. What are the secondary dishes, and what's the wine of your choice? What would be the meal that if you sat down with Stan and said, "You know what? We're gonna have the most phenomenal meal, and I'm gonna make it." What would that be, Zach?
Man, that's not fair. That's unscripted. Um, that is really, really unfair. And it's interesting because I see these celebrities doing my last meal. Don't ask me what that one is, but if you frame it the way that you just framed it, meaning I'm serving you the thing that I love to do the most, it's probably actually pretty simple. It's probably some beef over the open flame. I love to cook steak. I do a reverse sear, it's kind of a smoke over cherry wood, and then I char it in a cast iron to finish it off. Pretty well known technique, but the secret is the cherry wood gives a very distinct flavor to the beef. But I love steaks. I love lamb chops, any kind of red meat over open flame. I do a pretty good job of that. Um, Probably some potatoes that involve duck fat. I do them various different ways, but I love the distinct and unique flavor of duck fat. Sometimes I'll parboil the potatoes and smash them and uh, brush them with duck fat and put it in the oven in the broiler and make them crispy. So they're crispy potatoes. And I don't really like greens. A lot of times I'll do some type of interesting salad with pomegranate seeds and goat
Now
cheese
we're
or
talking.
something like that.
Love that.
Like a
Love that.
French dressing, or if I have to do like a cooked grain, it's probably broccolini with a lemon vinaigrette over it. So I think that's what I'd serve. And then I'd call Christian and ask him to make a Basque cheesecake for us.
That would
And we have to start with a charcuterie board because I do like putting together charcuterie boards. I did put a massive like table size charcuterie board together for the Chosen when I did the Chosen, and I like the art of it. That is where I can find some artistry, is putting together the right flavor of cheeses with the right fruit, the right nuts, the right meats, and then make it look pretty on a table.
Well, I can't do a podcast without talking about the challenges and especially the leadership aspect because as you know, my platform is really around, intentionality. It's around, having that purpose and finding that purpose and then having the intentionality around it to execute on it. So you gave us a great overview as we started out this podcast. What's the one thing you found out about Zac Jiwa that you didn't know over the last 2 to 3 years?
Hmm. Full of good questions. I guess you can cut out the long pauses. Um, I think maybe the biggest thing that I've learned is, and this is a tough one to master in business, but that you're not in control. We can say leadership really requires you to lead with humility, um, kind of the lowest seat at the table, servant leader, we'll use those terms. And I ascribe to all of those, uh, while at the same time being able to kind of command the direction, the ship, and all of those sort of things. But I think that I've learned that, and goals and dates and all of those things are important. Especially if you have shareholders in a business, and a board, and all of those sort of things. And I've certainly had those. So setting expectations are important, but you're not in as much control as you think you are. There's a lot of luck involved in being successful in business. It's about the people, and it's about serving the people well. It's about leading people well through that service. It's I had one leader say, "He with the best people win," and I think that's right. But you don't always have to hire the best people. Sometimes you can grow the best people. Um, and so I think it has a lot to do with that. I was very high expectant. I'm even that way with my kids, and I've learned to soften and let go. And I think in business today, I do have a professional job, and what's the verse I just posted the other day, that man can make his plans, but the Lord will set his course or his path.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
Just
in the
just copied that one
secular
down the other day myself.
yeah, in the secular world, we don't actually even know how to think about that or ascribe to that. But the reality is um, if you put a project plan together, and you are determined to hit it, you probably will and may, but it may be at the cost of some people or some things. And you see this over and over again, and especially product releases. That doesn't mean that you need to wait to release a product. It just means that sometimes your product doesn't have everything that you expected it to, or your delivery didn't have everything you expected it to. And
Yeah. Very, very well put.
humility requires a little humor, the ability to laugh at yourself first and foremost, right?
Yeah, very well put. I think I was journaling on that the other day because I just said, I do think you have to have intentionality. I think you have to have a dream. You have to have a vision. You have to have, the steps to get there. However, the outcomes aren't totally in your control.
Yeah, I'm
I can
feeling that.
carry you a
I'm
different
feeling that.
direction.
I'm feeling that right now. The old Zach. So first of all, filmmaking is an entrepreneur's journey. It is just like every other entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. I mean, I guess I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and I've led 3 different companies. Um, and filmmaking is no different, except for it has less structure. It has far fewer predictable outcomes. And I've been in some arguments with people about that. And at the end of the day, it might not actually be true, because you don't have really any predictable outcomes in any business. You might think you do. You might think you have metrics. If you grow your company 30% year over 40% year over year, you know that you're going to be successful, and you can take it to Wall Street and go public and all that sort of stuff generally. But you really don't have any control. You can pick better people. You can pick people that have been successful before, but that doesn't predict anything. And you can never predict the surprises. You can never predict, AI completely coming in and destroying or changing the way we do work, as an example. And the filmmaking world has been precisely the same, in terms of raising money, in terms of having a vision for the show, in terms of the timing and release. I, I was delusional, as it turns out, but I set out in July of 2023 to build a show and thought it'd be ready by December of 2023. Here we are in July of 2026. Just 9 months ago, we had the great blessing and opportunity to go to Israel in the midst of war, in a pause, in a break of peace. We went and filmed it, and I thought, man, we'll have this ready so that we can tee it up for all the film festivals and everything like that. I was like, we're going to be ready to go. And, we're still not finished editing. And I'm like, oh, and I can get really tense and, upset about it, or I can just recognize that there's a plan beyond me.
Yeah. Having having a production like this obviously, requires funding, requires money. Tell us a little bit about that. What's been the journey like to, set a budget to go out, raise money, and, how has that worked out for you, Zach?
I mean, pretty miraculously, yes. We definitely have to have money. I think that uh, I had a budget 3 years ago, just to do one show. I grossly underestimated the budget, but it's like many startups. You can find people who believe in your vision will come alongside you and make up for that budget, especially in the first wave. I thought I needed $50,000 to do a complete first episode. Got through the Jerusalem filming and realized that we needed more, $75,000 to film this, and probably need more than that. But I hate telling someone that it takes $50,000 and then continuing to stretch the goalposts and the goalposts again. So, kind of determined to fulfill the promise and try to get it done. Our current raise, we worked with a nonprofit that focuses on faith-based filmmaking, and we raised through that because $75,000 isn't actually a lot of money, and it's turns out to be easier if you give someone a tax break over trying to figure out equity in an unknown thing in the future. So we did it that way. But as we look forward and we kind of look at market stats and marketing and what it costs to bring something to full production, we're going to be able to do this first pilot episode, which will not be perfect. I don't have any expectation of perfection, but it's a sample so that we can see exactly what we're going to do. We've talked about editing this. We got enough footage in Israel and Jerusalem to do a full length documentary. And the model for doing that, it's a possibility. We would need more money to perfect that one. Even though we have the footage, the editing would be a much bigger thing. Hero Loves Sushi, for most people who ever watched that on Netflix, became the chef's table, right? And so we could do it that way, and we'd need to raise a little bit more. But if you balance production minutes and money, it's going to cost much more like 250 to 300,000, probably 250 to 350, depending on what we put in for marketing per episode. So my goal is to finish the pilot, be able to take it out for distribution, and either raise or get funded at about the 2 million mark for a full season of it.
Somebody's listening to this, they say, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly the opportunity I've been looking for." How do they reach you? What do they do? How do they help you and just get to know you better and get to talk about, the capital, raise that you're going through and, if they have interest, what's that look like?
Well, they're going to call Stan Gibson up and say, "Who is that guy that you had on your podcast? That was so interesting." No, I mean I'm pretty accessible, especially if we want to talk about food or wine or God or all three of them. I'm try to be prolific on the social channels. At chef underscore Zac underscore ATX is my personal Instagram handle, which is what I'm probably most responsive to. There is a website, Food, Wine, and God. You can email me there. Email address is Zac, Z-A-C, at foodwineandgod.com. I'll spare everyone my cell phone number, but I'm pretty readily accessible, and I want to have conversations about this for sure.
I
You
think you
can
need to
actually
be
go
on a
to
lot of podcasts. I
yeah,
think
I
you
need
need
to
to be
do
on a lot
that.
of
I
podcasts,
need
my
to do
friend,
that
because
as well.
I think that, you need to reach the masses. I think what you're doing and again, for those of you out there that are listening, you we're gonna put it in the show notes. We're gonna put the trailer in the show notes. We're gonna put Zach's website in the show notes. You're not gonna have a problem finding him. And I think when you see it and you see Zach's stage presence, you're gonna say, "Oh, now I get it. This guy has great stage presence. He does very professional work going in and again looking at the culture, looking at the culinary, looking at the wines, talking to historians, talking to vintners, people that raise grapes in these regions. It's really impressive. So they're not going to have a hard time finding you, my friend. I will trust you that. You know, when it comes to, some people say, "Well, where do I find this? Will it be on Netflix? Will it be on Amazon?" Well, how do you go about the process of deciding where this is gonna stream eventually?
I hope the answer to that is everybody wants to put this on their platform, and I have the high bidders tell me where they want it to go. I will leave that. The Lord has a plan for it, and I will leave that. But the business process is to really go share this with distributors and the connections that we have in the market, folks with Netflix and Amazon and the Wonder Project and other producers. One thing I need, and this can be one of the action items, the call outs is like, I actually need a mentor. I've been looking for a mentor who's been successful specifically in kind of the faith genre of film, unscripted. This is a unique niche, but it's also a really, really big market. And so, I can look out there and say, man, I would like Dallas Jenkins to be a mentor of mine, or John Irwin or Mel Gibson, right? They've all done stuff in this space, but I look for mentors all the time who have been through the journey, from nothing to successful. I think that's an equation, but to answer your question, I think it's a matter of having a product. Like, I've been in tech my whole life, right? You can sell a dream or a vision on a product. Try to go do that right now with AI disrupting everything. Like, any product you put out on the market today can be developed in a week or two. So you really have no unique IP out there. What you have to have is something special about your marketing. How do you get the attention of the audience? And how do you bring it to mass market? I don't know where software is going to go, honestly, with AI. But I said earlier, a little bit of luck, and I think you can hone in luck by who you have on the team, and the relationships, and who sees it and who hears about it. So it is important, like you said, to do more podcasts to be able to get this out here. And I'm just uh, chomping at the bit to have a polished, finished product that I can go show and share with people.
Well, I'm praying for you, my friend. I think this is gonna be awesome, and again, I think for the listeners out there, food, wine, and God, and again, we're gonna put enough stuff in the, show notes to where you can go there and start to check it out, and I will guarantee you, once you've done that, you'll be as excited as I was to reach out to Zach and say, "Hey, you wanna do a podcast?" And, again, I've been after Zach for a long time to do not just my podcast, but many podcasts, because I think that the work that he's doing from a faith-based standpoint, I mean, yeah, we all love food. We all love wine. And for those that love God, it's a great way to tether all of them. In fact, I read one quote that you had. It's a rich tapestry of taste, faith, and history. I love that. It's a rich
Uh,
tapestry of taste, faith, and history. And so I just think it's going to be awesome because it isn't just going to be about Jerusalem. It's going to be about, all the areas where Jesus walked. It's going to be about all the areas that, evolved after Jesus' death and what happened to the cuisine and to the wine. And it's just going to be interesting. I just love what you're doing, brother.
Taste and see that the Lord is good, Stan. Right?
There you go. There you go. Any final thoughts, Zach, as we end up?
Brother, thank you for pursuing me to be on the podcast, encouraging me, um, for supporting me. You've been a tremendous blessing in my life. You've been a tremendous blessing for the progress of the show, and I'm just so delighted. You're so gracious, and you've given me a lot of wisdom. So that's really all I have. Go check out foodwineandgod.com. You want to have a conversation about helping me get it over the finish line. I'd love to have that conversation. If you just want to follow along, you can follow the socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Food, Wine, and God. That's the handle for the show. And yeah, look for it. Pray for me. For those who pray
Yeah.
out there, pray for the show. Pray for me. I'd appreciate it.
Definitely got to pray for you. Yeah, the final thing I'll end with, is you heard of some of the money and, because it's always an expensive venture, but you don't have to come up with $10,000, $15,000. You can come up with $50 a month,
That's
$100
right.
a month. And, I went into into that way of, helping Zach. But just real quickly as we end up here, what is the fundraising mechanism that you use that we can come in? And in fact, you even sent me a free bag of coffee when I did
Did you
this.
drink?
So
Did you get it? Did you drink it?
you dang right I did. You
Yeah,
darn right I did.
I'll plug Generous Java because a good friend of mine who's a coffee roaster over in the Houston area was very generous. Because the company is Generous Java. So you can find the fundraising campaign. I'll let you post a link to this on GiveSendGo. Go to givesendgo.com and then search for Food, Wine, and God. I can't remember the exact URL, but you can post it. That's where we're raising for the finishing of the pilot. If you become a recurring donor, and like you said, yes, everything is appreciated. $50 a month, $100 a month goes a long way. If you become a recurring member, you get a free pound of coffee from our partners at Generous Java. They also I have some proclivities around coffee, and they did a Food, Wine, and God World Blend. And so if you become a recurring donor, then you get a pound of coffee, and then hopefully you'll keep buying coffee from Generous Java, because all proceeds of Generous Java actually go towards feeding the homeless and the hungry. It's a ministry also. So that's a really, really neat program, generousjava.org. If you don't want to hear anything about Food, Wine, and God, but you want some great coffee, actually $5 for every pound of Food, Wine, and God World Blend actually comes to the show also. So if you just want some good coffee, you can order some coffee.
Do that. Do that. It is actually it's very, very, very good copy, and that's coming from someone who really takes their copy serious, which I do. So I tell you what, Zach, I thank you, my buddy. Prayers are with you, my friend. And for those of you out there that are listening, yes, by all means, check out the show notes, check out the website, check out the trailer, and I will put a link into the give. Give, send, go. And we'll make sure that we make it easy on you. Thanks a lot, my friend. Love you to death, and blessings to you. And I can't wait for episode 1 to come out.
Awesome. Shalom.
Shalom. Hey, thank you. May everybody, hey, go out there and live a rich and intentional life. Take care. See you next time. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Zac Jiwa. What a special, special guy. What a special purpose in life to create a documentary about food, wine, and God, and to actually travel to these places around the world and do what he's doing. For those of you that follow the Inspiration Podcast with Stan, you know that a big part of my life is group coaching for executives. It's the Leadership Lab, which is a mastermind of executives and people that have visions like Zac. And, I just believe that, one of the things that we do is we talk about intentionality. We talk about having that vision, about having that dream, about, being able to put, the plans to execute this, knowing that we only have so much control. But the more intentionality we have, the better we have a chance of reaching that execution. And I know Zac's going to do that. And I just found his story very heartwarming. So, as I said, we're going to put in the show notes. We're going to put ways that you can fund and help support Zac, because someday when you're watching this on one of the streaming channels, you're going to say, "Hey, we were a part of that," and I think that's going to be very special. So, again, that intentionality, that specificity in life, he just got it 2 to 3 years ago. You're never too old, as he mentioned. He's well into his 40s, and this is something that is just laid on his heart to do. So, I talk a lot about having a legacy and work with a lot of executives on what is your legacy going to look like. And, you're never too late in life to start working on that legacy. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you start thinking about your own legacy. You start thinking about, how you need to execute in order to have a legacy of life. And most importantly, to live a rich and intentional life. Hey, thanks everybody. We've got some great episodes coming up next. Again, I'm going to do a solo cast this next one where we're going to talk some more about leadership. And we're going to talk some more about, how do you have that intentionality in your life. I think you're really gonna get excited about it. So anyway, thank you. May you all live a rich and intentional life. Take care and have a great day. Bye. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at stangibsonspeaks.com.